The 76ers lost again to the New York Knicks. This time they lost 97-92 in game 4, and the Sixers now are on the verge of once again falling short in the playoffs and losing in the first round, as we know in the Joel Embiid era. During the past decade or so for the Sixers, they've lost in the first or second round every year. Last year, we know they did put up a really tough fight against the Celtics, lost in game 7 that time. But this game was just horrible. It really was. The Sixers jumped out to an early lead, 10-point lead, and it really just all fell from there. From the second half began, it was all New York Knicks. The star of this game, and it wasn't even close, was Jalen Brunson. One of the best playoff performances that I can remember. Reminds me of when Jimmy Butler dropped over 40 and 50 over a year ago in his great playoff run. He dropped 47, 10 assists, was just cooking the Sixers. It's that simple. His shot making ability is just spectacular. It's on a different level. It really is. And it's just really frustrating. I've reached a point as a Sixers fan, as you can see, in past years where I'm a little desensitized to the Sixers losing because it seems like that's the normal and that's the thing that has become normal in the playoffs for the Sixers fans and everyone in Philly. But I really wanted to talk more about Joel Embiid because he gets a lot of praise, and that praise is it's very well deserved. He scored 50 points, led them to a game 3 victory. If he doesn't score 50, they don't come close to winning that one. I think that's for sure. We can agree on that. But something that people don't talk enough about is that besides the stats on the stat sheet, the amount of effort and energy that Joel Embiid gives this team on a nightly basis is just flat out embarrassing. It's some of the worst quality of defense I've seen from a caliber of player of his level, of a guy that has all NBA defensive team in his history and has defensive player of the year possibilities every single year. And from a guy that wants to elevate himself and wants to put himself on a different level, it just seems like when the moment gets the brightest and gets the biggest, Embiid comes up short. I'm not taking away anything he did in game 3 because that was amazing. That deserves a ton of praise, but that was just one victory. That's the reality, and that's how the NBA works. Nick Nurse, Sixers coach, said when it hits midnight, he moves on to the next game, and that's how you have to be in the NBA. And for a guy like Embiid, and a superstar, a guy that wants to put himself on an all-time level, wants to be talked about as one of the best offensive players of all time, having, I believe, 8 points in the fourth quarter is just not good enough for a do or die game. A game that if you lose, and the Sixers did lose this one, as we know, by 5 points, that you're putting yourself on the verge of getting eliminated from the playoff once again. And this is not just this season. And I know this defense to that. The other side of the argument is Embiid's going through Bell's palsy in the left side of his face, which is really unfortunate. And he's going through a knee injury that he came back from, to me, a little bit too early and didn't come back 100%, probably around 60, 70 at the very most to me. So all of that considered, I get we're not expecting 100%, but the one thing that I've always talked about and I've always stayed true, not just in basketball, but any level of athletics, is you always can affect your energy, your effort, how much of a hard worker you are on the floor. You can affect that. That is really just about how much you want it. And it seems like Embiid just doesn't want it. Doesn't want it more than the next guy. And that next guy was a guy in Jalen Brunson, former Villanova Wildcat, at his former home in Philly, dropped 20 more points than Embiid, 47, was scoring at ease, was dinking and ducking and hitting pull-up shots, hitting threes, finishing at the rim through contact. That is a superstar. Superstars play at their best in the biggest moments. They elevate their game in the biggest moments. And Joel Embiid just hasn't done that. He's continually proved that he isn't the best player on the floor when the Sixers need it the most. And that's why that every season we can go through the history. Every season it's somebody else. Embiid's on his third coach in 8 years. It was Brett Brown's fault one year. Last year it was Doc Rivers. It was Ben Simmons' fault. Tobias Harris has got a lot of blame through the years and will continue to get blame. He wasn't perfect, only 10 points, 8 rebounds in this game. They do need more from him. That is true. But when you want to be the best player on the team, you take the fall. You don't throw the criticism to other people and say, oh, it's Ben Simmons' fault. It's Doc Rivers' fault. It's this guy. It's him. No. If you want to be the best player, you want to be a Hall of Famer, you have to show that in the biggest moments. And Embiid just does not do that. He's not good enough. It's just that simple. He's a really good player, but when the moments get the brightest, he's continued to prove that he just isn't on that all-time level. Because let's be real, all of the all-time greats haven't won championships. That's true, but they've at least got there. They've at least got to a conference finals, which Embiid's on year 10. He hasn't been to a conference finals. That's just embarrassing. He hasn't been out of the second round. He hasn't touched the finals. Hasn't sniffed the finals. And it all goes back to the mentality of him putting himself in the best position, which I don't think he has. I don't think he has been in the best shape when it comes to playoff time. And you can control that. He should be in better physical shape. He shouldn't be huffing and puffing throughout the game in the biggest moments. That's when you need to be at your best. I know everyone's banged up, but it's frustrating. It's really frustrating when your best player, a guy who just won an MVP last year, well deserved, doesn't take it to the next level like we've seen Jokic do, and like we've seen many other greats with LeBron and with Steph Curry, and even guys like Jimmy Butler who have been to 2 finals as of late. So those are just my early thoughts. It seems like the Sixers will fall because very few teams have came back down 3-1, and I think this offseason, instead of pointing the finger at Tobias Harris or Kyle Lowry or Nick Nurse, you got to point the finger. It's time to point the finger at Joel Embiid.